excellent. But just for...
Oh.
What?
Are we going out on audio?
You can hear some of the notes in the low end, the sub, sound like they're bottoming out just a little bit, just kind of hitting hard. I'm going to see if I can even those out and make the low end a bit more consistent through the whole pattern. Much. I like this though. A little tighter too. All right, now we're really gonna have some fun. You can do some cool things with sweeps on these. Kind of a plain sounding synth here. The high cut, this really shines. Overheads only. Okay. All right, whole kit.
What's happening?
Hello.
Welcome back. Oh, we got to get this recording.
Oh, yeah. Excellent.
There we go. Happy Sunday. What's happening? What's shaking? How many other ways can I say it? I don't know, actually. Let's see. It's been a fun weekend here so far. It's been a busy weekend. That's for sure. Let me get this pulled up. Ooh, got to make sure my audio is off. I will pull a rookie move there.
I made it in time. Your 2 alerts failed once again.
Okay, what the heck? I've been trying to figure that out now for the last couple weeks, reading up and trying to see if there's anything that I'm doing wrong when I set these up. But I've also heard from some other people that they've been having the same issues. I don't get it. Maybe I'll call YouTube. I'm sure they'd take my phone call. You think?
Oh yeah, of course. Especially if you talk to them pissed. Listen, you mother effers.
I've never been mad. I am calm and level-headed all the time. That's a bullshit. So how's everybody doing? This is the first one of these of the year. First console side chat of 2023. Holidays for me were good. I mean, I got stuck in Kansas because of that Southwest debacle. I'm pretty assuming you had a good trip too.
Yeah. So I can't complain. Yeah,
Excellent.
It was great. I've heard Silicon Valley responds well to emotional expressions of anger. Oh, that's great.
You know what? We'll give it a try. I'll put that to the test. I'll see if we'll do a little experiment, and I'll film it, and it'll probably just be me yelling at the music playing back off the hold line.
Yet Elusive says YouTube alerts work, but you have to go into your phone settings and make sure that it will allow it otherwise nothing happens.
Oh.
Yeah, see, always got to do some notifications.
I know,
somewhere.
that's the hard part. They offer the ability to notify people, but then they don't tell you that if you don't set everything else, if those people that want to be notified don't set everything else up, it doesn't work. Perhaps that's worth some sort of video. I'm sure we're not the only one affected.
Yeti Lufus had his first recording session in over a year yesterday. Wow, nice.
How'd it go? Was it good? What are you recording?
Did the artist show up? I mean, you have a recording session, right? But did the artist show up?
Well, he said he had his first one, so, must have been there.
With us in a stream, right? When the artist doesn't show up. That
only happened that one time. That is the first time in my career that there's been an actual no-show, and they didn't even bother saying anything until they were approached by someone on our side.
Yeah. So not even telling the venue directly. It's like, hey, I can't show up. No, go tell somebody else, and then they tell us.
Never had that happen.
Yeah.
And that is, that's a kind of a pet peeve of mine anyway. Just if you're going to be late, things happen sometimes, especially if you're in cities like LA, just sometimes there's nothing you can do about being late. But everyone has this thing called a phone next to them. Send a text, an email, make a phone call. Look, I'm running behind. Don't wait till the time that you're supposed to be there to send a message. Oh, I'm going to be late. No kidding. You're supposed to be here 5 minutes ago, Don't just, everybody's time is valuable. So be respectful to whoever you're working with. If you're running late, just send a heads up. And if you can't make it, you damn well better reach out. I put those people on my blacklist. Won't ever worry. If you don't show up and don't contact me, I will, we're done.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Wow, Yeti Elusive actually recorded Smoke on the Water with his buddies. Nice. Did you do the Made in Japan version?
Is that different?
It's the best, period.
Oh, all right. I'm going to have to go check that one out.
Yeah,
then.
It's the best. Because, the recording of that album is just amazing. They do live albums pretty well in Japan, So I don't know what it is, but they record well.
All right,
over
I
there.
don't think I've ever heard that one. I'm going to have to go check that one out.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the thing for me this year is I want to know what everybody's goals are. Because I know I've got some quite a few goals, and I'm not talking this New Year's resolution stuff, no, I'm talking about what went on with you last year, what were you working on, what were you doing, what you were trying to accomplish, and at the reset for the new year, how are you going to modify those goals that you didn't reach yet, or maybe you've realized they need to change a little bit? What are your goals musically? We always talk about gear, we're always buying gear, and that is definitely one of the fun parts of it. But what are we doing with all this stuff? Who are we recording? Yeti's already got one in the bag for this year. What are some of your goals, either as the artist, as your studio? And I don't care if you're doing it professionally, if you're just doing it for fun. What are goals for the year? I know my big one, and this is the general goal, is going to be I want to release a lot more music this year. I want a lot of the videos that we do related to the channel to relate to music. There'll be some that are, more how-to and maybe, trying out some new gear and that sort of thing. But I have multiple projects going on right now that are related to some of the things we do here, and I want to try to get all of those moving forward to release music and music and music and music and get more music out. Not just have videos about, making it and gear and everything, but to actually get music out there. And I'm working on more than one way of doing that. What are you guys doing? Who's got some big goals for this year? Because I think that's got to be something that, we've kind of have to think about as we go through all this. I mean, sometimes, yeah, if you're just doing it for fun, then just have as much fun as you can. But if you really want to, maybe you're working on your first EP, maybe you're working on your first album, maybe you're just trying to get your studio off the ground, maybe you're mixing and you're trying to get that. What are some things that you're doing to make 2023 bitchin'? Wait, I see David Coverdale over there. Made in Japan is Coverdale on vocals. Is that Coverdale on vocals?
No, it's Ian.
When did Coverdale start doing that gig?
74, when they did California Jam.
Oh.
Yep. And, the difference between just vocally, right? The mid-range between those. Ian Gillan is really, I would say 2K and up. And Coverdale is way more in 800 2K. More throaty. And Ian Gillan is more bright, sharp.
Mm-hmm. Both of them pretty bitchin' singers, though.
Oh yeah, I mean they have their very different style, but you can totally hear. And the bass player in California Jam, which was also, goodness, the bass player that sang when they did Burn. Jesus Christ. Well, I mean, kind of has the same voice as Ian Gillan, and you can totally hear it in the mics, both using the same mic, 58s there, whatever, I think they had. And when Coverdale sings, it's mid-range. And then when the other guy sings, the bass player, I cannot remember, it's whoa, that's 4K more, It's
is it that one?
Glenn Hughes.
Yeah.
Thank you, people. It's man, memory is just going, man. This is terrible.
He's getting old.
Yeah. Damn.
I'm not. Yeah, Glenn Hughes is a badass singer.
Yeah. So
holy crap.
So Glenn Hughes
and bass player.
Yeah, and Glenn Hughes and Ian Gillan have the same, color in the voice. When you hear it, it's so sharp. It's
yeah, Glenn cuts.
Oh yeah. And Ian Gillan was the same. He just cuts. So I would say David Coverdale is way more the blues guy. It's really throaty. I've been mistreated. It has that really growl in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so Yeti says one goal he's got is to improve his workflow with some outboard gear. That's cool. What specifically? Is it mix bus? Is it some, drum bus, guitar bus type thing? I think that was one of my last rewires, was very similar to that, trying to make the end of my chain smoother when I moved that one rack over here, the mix bus rack, to put in the new 500, and had the way I have everything in the patch bay now has made my life 100 times easier when mixing and tracking using that, which was nice. Now I don't have to think about that stuff anymore. It's just it becomes a creative tool.
Wow. So Electric Owl, he says renovating the main control room to go Dante and Atmos.
Oh, wow.
Wow. I heard a story yesterday, which is funny, where I think I can say it, the NFL found the limit of Dante because they had 18,000 connections in the building.
Now the NFL is going to shut us down, you know that.
Yeah, right. and they were wondering why things were not connecting because, you can only go 512 streams per Ethernet cable, and they wanted more.
I like how it's only 512, like it's some actual limitation. My Lord.
Yeah. I mean, we do 512 all day.
I've got, 5 or 12. Well, that's cool. So you're going to have, Electric Al, you're going to have a room with Dante and Atmos and a separate stereo mixing room? That's interesting. Is there a reason for, if I'm reading that correctly, is there a reason why you're dividing the two up? I'm very curious about that, actually. Man Network goal for this year is to have our new studio in Nashville finished and in working order. Oh, for Off the Floor. Oh, cool. So are you trying to do more of a live kind of thing there? Is that the goal? And new studio. You building the second one? Man, that's cool.
Man, did
I
everybody...
want to see some photos.
Yeah. Did people win the lottery? Everybody's like buying stuff and building new things. Like, man, great.
I think that's awesome. I think it's cool too when you see things like Electric Out. You find workflows that you need to do, and once you've done it long enough, you've had your studio around, you know what works, you know what doesn't, you know what like to fix, which is kind of like what I've been trying to do around here the last year is going, okay, 4 or 5 areas I need to improve now that I've been here long enough doing enough gigs to start to change things up a little bit. And you got to evolve. I mean, the business is changing so fast now. You have to evolve. I'm not going in the Atmos thing yet, but I'm keeping my eye on it for sure.
We got Daniel from Italy. La Bella Italia is here. Nice.
I can't say the words I know in Italian.
No, don't. Oh, well, there will be Dante in all rooms with tie lines interconnects between our A and B rooms. Nice.
Wait, Yeti, how are you hooking up that lexicon? He says he's got a nice lexicon PCM 70, which is bitchin', that he doesn't use much because of the latency, so the only time he uses it is when he decides to take the time and record the output of those tracks and nudge them into time. What's your setup? Are you printing everything back into the same session? So you're going in and out of the same session? Yeah, I could see some possible latency issues there, but you should be able to. Electric will be Dante in all rooms, and the tie lines interconnects between our A and B rooms. That's cool. Don, that should actually simplify a lot of your wiring in the walls too, going Dante. Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, Cat 6 for Dante and digital headphone systems.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the way, it really is kind of the way to go. Totally. John says he's going to learn some VST instruments better and write music. I think that's a great goal, actually. And you know what? Talk about a creative way to kickstart your writing or to, take it another direction is to learn some new instruments, even if it's just VSTs and you're programming everything. Hopefully you get some good creativity out of that and make some music.
Oh, nice. MAN says, I was originally a session player in Nashville, so Off the Floor was always standard. Cool. So 1-2 takes. Excellent.
Well, it could be more than that. Doesn't have to be 1 or 2. But it could. That's my favorite way of working. I love it when I have a band in here and everybody's cutting together. Even if you go fix some stuff and do some overdubs or whatever, it's just the experience and the liveliness and the life and the energy is so different when everyone's playing together.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, you have to be able to do it, but it's a lot of fun. So how big is the studio? How many rooms is it gonna be one room where everybody's cutting? Do you have any ISO booths? Speaking of ISO booths, that's one of my other goals that I'm trying to finish up to make my workflow here better is the back ISO booth, which I showed a little bit of in the studio tour that went up last week. But I'm trying to have 2 separate ISOs that I can use in 2 different ways. And I already use that back room for guitars all the freaking time. And I have put people back there. And it works. You know, with the HDMI on the walls, I can put a monitor and a camera on each side. But I'm getting the ceiling finished. I'm going to get a little bit of treatment for that one side so I can do some drums and some other things back there. And line of sight with the monitor and a GoPro is usually what it is, so you can get the wide angle. But it works so much. It works pretty good already.
Danny is asking, any thoughts on adding automation, moving faders to the console?
It has it. I didn't talk about it in the studio tour. But we are beta testing it right now. This console does have automation. If you go take a look at the last couple live streams from last year, and I think I did a mix video. It was all the Christmas tunes, you know, rocking around the Christmas tree and Jingle Bell Rock. But the automation is being used in both of those. When the last 2 live streams, the last one we did some recording, so it would have been, yeah, it was November. Well, they were both in November. Yeah. There's still a few things we're working out, but it's getting there. It's getting close. Everybody was off for the holidays, so we'll get back at it here soon, trying to finish that up. It's made a huge, I mean, that alone has made a huge difference in my workflow, especially if I have to go back and forth between songs. If I'm in a mix session with the band and we're doing 3 or 4 days of mixing, and all I have to do is, you know, changes to EQ and whatever, and your volumes all come back up nice and quickly. Plus, I get to work the way that I want to work, which that has been the best part about it.
Yeti says, I'm printing in the same session with a 003 interface and an Apogee outboard converter.
So are you, is it aggregate device? Are you back or PC? So if you're using the Digio 3 with the Apogee, you'd have to be running if it was on a Mac, you'd have to be running a aggregated device, right?
Yeah.
Which, that's where you're late. That's
Yeah.
where definitely where you're
Yep.
going to get some latency.
Yep.
And that's exactly what I used to have here with the Motus and the Apogee. And I was printing back into the same Logic session.
Yeah.
And it drove me insane.
Yeah. So you're probably better off using the Apogee just for the final print, so it's completely separate
Which
from
is probably what he's doing, but it's
Yeah.
going back to the same session.
Yeah.
If you can run that to another computer and then monitor that back so you have like a print machine, you should be able to print all that stuff and not have to deal with the latency. I mean, honestly, I don't know how you have your I/O set up to use your outboard gear, because that's going to have a big effect on
Yep.
your latency and how you can use things that way, or, you know, not have to print in and move around every time you get something. Or you could use that latency as your pre-delay for the reverb. That actually might be kind of cool.
Oh, so from Italy, right? Daniel, he bought a Trident 88 in 2020.
Nice. Wait, what's the name of your studios?
Clip
Clip Recording. Yeah. You guys have a cool place. How are you liking it?
He's in
working
love
out
with
well?
it. Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
If I would just read the text in front of me, I would know.
MAN asks about the console. Do you know if Taft consoles have much in common with your Tridents?
Yes and no. The Taft was designed by Malcolm Taft. They were owned by PMI also, that owns Trident. And the pre is not the same. The EQ is close to what the ADB was. I'm sure there was something in it, you know, to get it at the price points that they had that console. There's some things that changed, but I know the pre was different. I know the headroom was different. I know, you know, the aux and stuff. Some of the actual, you know, connectivity on the board was very different. But as far as these sonics, they're very, very different. But the Taft was based on the ADB. That's kind of what its, you know, lineage was, you know, from Malcolm Taft. And I had one of those for a while before the Trident went in. That did a lot. 24 channel, did a ton of music on there and mixing on it, you know. And I had no problem. I thought everything we were doing around then sounded really good. But it was noticeable when the Trident went in. It was night and day. I mean, it was a ridiculously big jump to the openness, the fidelity, the depth. The headroom was hugely different. But I mean, I have no problem with the top. I think they're not making them anymore. The Trident came out with the 68, which does have the same pre. The EQ is different. It's based on the 80B, but there might be something else different too. I'm not entirely sure. Has less auxes. I think it's buckets of 8 on the pre's, or the channel strip side. It's not modular in that way. But it's actually a nice, and they only make 2 configure. I think there's a 16 and 24. I think that's all you can get on the 68. But it is built really well. It's a little more than the Toft was, but it's also a higher quality console than the Toft was.
Oh, Electric Owl says our Studio A is 26 by 20 control room, and then 30 by 18 live room with 14 ceilings.
Dude, that's awesome. That's a great size.
And the ISO is 16 by 14.
And the mix master room is 26 by 12.
That's nice.
Nice. Yeah, you've got some good space over there. I got to check this place out, man. I got to see this. Yeah, I have heard very mixed things from people in the Orum's consoles. Some of it's quality, and I do know some people that have ordered them and have yet to receive them.
Yeah.
Which is a problem in and of itself. I can't speak to any of that. I've never dealt with them or...
Yeah. Well, his went on fire, so...
Okay, that's not good. I mean, you do want analog warmth with your console, but I think that may be taking it a little too literally.
It's a little too crispy, yeah.
Oh, my God. It caught on fire?
Yeah.
How is that even possible? I mean, that had to come from where the power supply or something comes in there. Wow. Yeah. Sold it as, yeah, you don't want a console catching on fire. You don't want any of your gear catching on fire unless you're purposely trying to catch it on fire for some reason. Don't know what it would be, but it could make a good video. Yeah, I mean, look, I have a Trident, so I'm going to be obviously probably a little bit biased on that end of things, and I love it. And I've got to use the other ones they have, but I will say whether it's the 88, the big kahuna here, or it's the 78 or 68, those boards are rock solid. The quality control is good, the sound is good. Any of those things are a nice investment. And if you're in that area of a Toft, or even some of the price range of where some of the Orums were, you could get yourself into a 68 or even a 78 and have something that you could just set it up and it's going to work. Yeti. Okay, Yeti, I get enough of noticeable latency from sending out until it comes back in. So wait, you're getting latency? What are your buffer settings? And he does the click to manually line it up. Yeah, but there's got to be a better way of doing this.
I know, because usually if you use some sort of I/O plugin for hardware, there should be some latency compensation.
Yeah, but if you're getting that much latency going out, and not just back in, yeah, what are your buffer settings at? Man Network says his guitar and instrument storage facility went up in fire in two. Oh.
Yeah, that sucks.
I can't even read the rest of that comment. Oh, my God.
Ugh.
That is absolutely tragic. That sucks.
Yeah, that's horrible. Really horrible.
Yeah, Zona, you had the Toft ATB 16. Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, if I went somewhere and it was working and that's the console they had in there, I wouldn't hesitate to go right to work on there, because you can do great stuff. I mean, so much of what we do really depends on whoever is actually making the music. You're not going to ruin anything by using a Toft or anything else, You can still make great sounding stuff pretty much on anything if you know what you're doing or know what you're trying to do. And sometimes you just have to let the gear lead you in a direction. You know, if you're working somewhere and they don't have exactly what you want, you have to use what's there and get creative with it. You know, let it take you on a bit of a journey, you know, explore. And that's another thing. Okay, this is going to be, I'm going to make this a really short rant. That's not really a rant. It's just more of something I've noticed, especially, you know, browsing through a lot of different YouTube videos. There's so much emphasis in some of the YouTube educational music world about just doing things faster. Do this. Here's a trick. Here's a hack. Here's a this. And I don't want to sound like the old man just yelling in the microphone, get off my yard.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when I see so much of this emphasis being put on just simply speeding up workflow, do this faster. And yes, there is something to that, especially if you're on the clock with, you know, a client or something. Yeah, you have to be able to work efficiently. So the type of work you do obviously will have some of an effect on this. But even though we're making a living doing this, or a lot of us are making a living, there's still an art aspect to this. So shouldn't some of what we're doing, instead of do this faster, do that faster, shouldn't some of it be explore this a little more, explore that a little more, and try to be unique and creative? Especially since there's so many areas of the business now that people are using the exact same things, the same plugins, the same, you know, sample library or whatever, that it all starts to be very, very similar. And we sometimes do things just because, hey, well, that made that faster, and you can just go do that, instead of taking the time to explore and either be unique for your own music or unique for the artist you're working for. Again, I get it. Your workflow may require you to work quick, or you may be in genres that, you know, you're having success and they force you to kind of go down that, you know, that template kind of path, whatever. So that's not right for everybody. But I think we should be exploring what we do more to be more creative and differentiate ourselves or our clients as much as we can from the other artists, so they're unique, so you have a chance of standing out a little bit. Otherwise, we all just sound the same. It's kind of boring. All right, rant over. I'm done with that.
Here, specific question. What big difference that justifies the price between successor, compressor, and Golden Age 54s?
Well, you do have, the successor does give you a few different features that the Golden Ages don't have, which are in the first one's the sidechain filters. There's a few different things. I mean, the Golden Age does have, I think, I want to say 3 settings. Yeah, it has 3 settings on the sidechain. It's 2 low cuts and 1, you know, kind of de-essing frequency, which I've never used in my life. The Heritage, the successor, gives you the low cut ones, but there's also 2 different, I think it's 800 and 3K. That can be very interesting on a mix or even drums. You can really hear it affect a snare and kind of reshape the mix a little. It can be really cool. I got my headphones stuck in the wheels of the chair. That can be really cool. You also have the blend option, so you can do, you know, a wet-dry signal, so you have your kind of built-in parallel compression. You don't have that on the Golden Ages. I do think they sound different, though. I'm not I know the successor's kind of based off that Neve. I want to say the 2254 Heritage, or I don't think it's the 33609. I think it's the 2254. It's not a copy. It's its own thing. They do a good job at kind of taking them and making them a little bit different, but it has a different sound for sure than the Golden Age. It's a little, I want to say, a little squishier. Like when, especially on the do you feel it when you were hitting the drums? Yeah. They do this like kind of, it does a really nice squish job. It is a little on the dark side. The Golden Ages are too in that matter. I think the mid-range of the Golden Ages are a bit more forward, which is why I like them on guitars a lot. And drums, obviously, too. But I really like them for what they do with the mid-range of the guitars, even if you're not really compressing or not compressing at all. They just have that kind of bit of a forwardness that I don't really get from the Heritage. I think the Heritage is a little bit more even through the mid-range. That'd be some. I haven't done a direct comparison, to be quite honest with you, going, okay, I'm going to run this through the Heritage and I'm going to run it through the Golden Ages. One thing I like about the Golden Ages over the Heritage, though, would be the fact that I have two. I don't have to run things in stereo. I can do dual mono, which I really like. Sometimes when you're doing stereo units, you can feel them pull in a little bit. I don't get too much of that with the Heritage, but I like the feel is a bit different when I just have two separate units, even if they're set the same, working entirely independent of each other. But then on the Heritage, I like the ability to do the parallel compression on there, because sometimes you can, pair of overheads, you can slam them, get them exciting, and just dial a little bit of that into your overhead sound, and all of a sudden your drums are coming to life. So that's a really neat feature. I should maybe, one of these days, I'll take some time to run the stuff through both of them.
They improved the quality, right, on those 54s, right? Like.
Oh, on the Golden Age?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think they're the Mark. I think it's the Mark III now. It is a considerable improvement. The switches are better, way better on there. The power supply has been upgraded. They're quiet. I still have a pair of Mark I's in here. Usually that's my drum parallel, and then I use the Mark IIIs for guitars and other things that are more featured. I haven't had any issues with them, and they're rock solid. And I have not done the upgrades to them. They're just everything's stock. They sounded good, so I'm not going to go down that path. But I don't think I necessarily answered the question that was asked. But those are some of the differences. Sonically, they do things a little bit differently. They both have some thickness to them. They're both a tiny bit on the dark side. I wouldn't say dark, but they're definitely not bright open like the tube core or something. You put that on and, oh, man, it really makes things come out. Those are definitely more rounded on the top, which can be very, very nice. The successor might be a little bit smoother overall than the Golden Age.
Yeah.
When it comes to like drums and things like that anyway. I haven't really done too many guitars and stuff to the successor because I like the mid-range of the Comp 54 better for that.
Yeah. So he says, so I guess I should get both.
Okay, then I did answer, yeah. Yeah, they are different. I mean, how many times do we go out and buy multiple versions of the same thing? Or you see some big studios that they'll have every flavor of 1176 because they all do something a little bit differently. So if you have the money and you're interested, yeah, I would highly recommend both of them because I do think they can do different jobs and they can do similar jobs. But like I said, with the Golden Age, if you have a pair of those, you also have two compressors. So you could use them mono, you could use them dual mono, or you could use them stereo linked, and that is cool. Whereas the successor, it's stereo. But you get the blend option, and you have a couple different sidechain filters that can be quite interesting.
Here's another specific question. Do you have issues with phase when running left and right in dual, or do you just stick with a stereo unit for a stereo signal?
Wait, read that again? I got to get uncaught from the chair here. It's driving me nuts.
Do you have issues with phase when running left and right in dual mono? Or do you just stick with a stereo unit for a stereo signal?
No, I try to use dual mono as much as possible. I mean, even my mix bus, the C1 is dual mono. I never, ever use that in stereo. Ever. I want the sides independent. If something happens on the right side that happens to make the compressor grab, I don't want to bring in the whole thing down. I just want it affecting those areas. I have not noticed any phase issues. There could be. I'm sure if we put it on a scope, we'd probably see some things that would make us freak out, but I try not to look at music.
Yeah.
Try to listen to it as much as I can. So I have not noticed. Before I say the rest of that sentence, let me just think. No, from running dual mono, I've never noticed. And honestly, I think I've completely stolen that idea from a couple other big mixers. I know CLA has said that before. I even want to say was it Vance Powell or Joe Barresi or somebody? I can't remember, but no, to my knowledge, I've never noticed anything that I've actually heard, and I've never put it on a scope to see if there's something happening, and I honestly don't really care. Analog is very destructive, so you're always going to have some phase shift with things. Some gear more than others.
Yeah.
But that's part of the sound of it,
Mm-hmm. A home record made easy says,
David Vignola, how you doing, brother?
I'm loving the Trident ADBs. You recommend it.
On drum bus.
Yep.
Yeah. I kind of thought you might. Especially that low end is just great. Nice. I'm glad those worked out. You never know. It's always weird recommending gear to people because you think it's cool and the way you use it, but then you give it to someone else and they might, or you recommend it to someone else, they might use it different, kind of go, man, what's wrong with you? This gear isn't good. So you always have to try it for yourself. Listen to people that you trust their opinions, but you still got to try it for yourself.
Totally.
Because you never know.
Totally. Let's see.
Plus, Electric Al works +1 for the dual mono.
Yep.
Does he? Oh, so Brower. I'll bet that's another person I've heard say that. Yep, since he runs all his buses through dual mono, and my C1. If you go stereo, it goes from this to this. You lose like 10% of your sides in the width of things, and that drives me insane. If I'm gonna lose width, I want it to be me panning things in, not having to fight that. I also find that a lot of the times. And I'll just speak of what I have but both the Golden Ages, especially the C1, the same thing if I'm over with the Tone Luxes. I do that a lot with also. That I like the way they, like the play that you get from the dual mono a little bit. Kind of keeps, even if you're hitting something kind of hard, like crushing it, it still can feel bouncy and playful, where if you go to stereo mode, it feels like it takes the whole thing and it just like clamps down on it every time you're hitting it, and I just don't like that.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't like that.
Kaiser Sosa says, I'm loving my new SSL Fusion. I hear you, brother. I got one myself, so can't complain.
Is this the same Kaiser Soze that was in the movie with Kevin Spacey?
Probably.
That's the best name. I love it.
I mean, nobody has ever seen him.
Nope.
So.
Yeah, that's right. So you just got a Fusion also, right?
Yeah. So
he got a Fusion. We just right before the holiday mastered the next the Necronomicon Ex Mortis EP. He sends the masters back. We got it dialed in. It sounds great. I can't wait for that stuff to be released. Doesn't bother telling me he just upgraded and bought more gear over there, and he completely did a different chain than he's ever done. Yep, there it's back. Okay, if you can hear this, it should be coming back any second.
And I think
Old Black Magic's
there we
switch. Yep, it's the old switch. It's a little long in the tooth. Time for an upgrade. I just think it's Kaiser Soze. That rules.
Yeah, Kaiser Soze is a great name.
Man, I wish I thought of something that cool. All right. Fixed. With all your outboard gear and console, do you have any issues with ground loops? I have an old Tascam M37 and outboard gear, and I'm having issues with 60 cycle hum. Any wrecks? Yeah, that can... no, I don't have any problems here. We're on... The control room itself has its own large breaker. It's separate from almost everything else in here. Everything goes through power conditioners. Some better than the others. Some probably just placebo. And everything's on backup batteries that's also filtering the AC. So that end of things, it's coming in, it's clean. Are you at home? Is this a home studio? You're in the garage? You know, there's a lot of things this could be, and this is one of those areas that can be a real pain in the ass trying to figure out what the culprit is. The unfortunate way that if I was, with the limited information I have from your comment right there, if I was in that situation, I would unhook all of my outboard gear, and this is going to suck. But we have done something like this back when it was different rack setup, but there was some gear on this side of the console that didn't play nice together in the rack, and it was creating havoc. Whenever you would patch one of those two pieces of gear in, it affected everything. I would take all your outboard gear, take it out of the patch bay, unplug it, whatever. Get down to the bare necessities to get audio in and see if you have an issue there. Let's say it's with the Tascam. Dump everything but that, your DAW. Record in, see if you have any issues, if anything's going wrong. If it's clean, you know that your base setup is fine, so it's something after that. And then start bringing things back one at a time. If you have a lot of outboard gear, this can be a nightmare. You know, so maybe try to unplug groups. But if you don't have a ton of stuff, this is the best way to do it. And you start bringing one piece of gear back at a time and hooking it up, and find where the loop starts to happen. And then you can identify if it's cabling. If you're in racks, there have been issues before with maybe a bad ground or something in the piece of gear itself, or maybe the case, the rack case itself isn't grounded quite properly, and it's touching metal, you know, the metal rails that we put it on, and that happens to be touching the next piece of gear, especially if the little plastic separators or rubber separators are not installed properly. There's a reason why your rack screws have a piece of plastic or a rubber separator, and that is for extra separation between metal housing and metal rail. You know, that in and of itself doesn't mean you will have a problem, but that is one place you can have a problem. Things that are wired in series together, different gears sometimes, especially if you have some older gear, you know, could have different grounding. You could look at star grounding systems. But the easiest thing to do, pain in the ass, I should say simple, not easy. The simplest thing to do is unplug everything, start with the base unit, and then build back from there and see if you can find where the hum starts. If you go down to bare bones, you've got your Tascam, right? Your Tascam there and your DAW, and you just plug a mic in and you're hearing ground loop or a ground hum on anything, any channel that you use, then you have to look at where you're plugging into. You know, if you're at home, that could be as simple as, you know, a washing machine on the same leg as your audio gear. Mm-hmm. Could be an air conditioner. It could be lighting, LED lighting included. Any of that stuff could be causing a hum. Cables are another big spot. Trying to think. That doesn't mean cheap cables in and of themselves could be the issue, because I've had good cables. I mean, I've got a handful of Planet Waves that I've been having to replace because I've had that problem with them, you know, and I've had hoses that had no problems. A lot of times it comes down to the quality of the soldering, you know, and that's where you, on cheaper cables, usually run into your issues, is they're just not put together very well and cause a lot of problems. You know, if you have excess cabling in the back wrapped up on top of each other, that can create noise. Usually that would be more interference than it would be ground hum. This sounds like it could be power or something isn't grounded right somewhere. Mm-hmm. But recap, basic system, only the bare bones, record something in. Do you have an issue there or not? No, Move to hooking the next piece of gear back up. Yes. Where are you plugged into and what else is on that leg? And can you get any filtering or power conditioning? And the cheap power conditioners, people, they're not power conditioners.
Yeah, there's
nothing
just
in them to
glorified power strips.
Yeah, there's barely any filtering in those at all. You know, so really do your research on those if you think you're getting a power conditioner, and get something that actually will help you and not just call itself a power conditioner to charge you a couple $100 for a power strip you could spend $35 for at Home Depot or Lowe's. That sort of thing.
Beagle Studios asks, thoughts on using Cat 7 for XLRs from room to room?
Wait, sorry, I was reading another one.
Oh.
Say that again?
Thoughts on using Cat 7 for XLRs from room to room?
I mean, isn't that kind of the way... I mean, I don't know about the Cat 7 specifically, but Dante, I mean, you're running over Cat 5. I know the Motu AVN network, is that what they call it?
Mm-hmm.
Is over Ethernet, but I'm not sure they're specifically saying Cat 7. I know from Cat 5 to 6, one of the biggest differences, one of them, I don't know, all is shielding. Although you can get shielded Cat 5. I think all Cat 7 is shielded. I don't know the benefits of Cat 7 over 6 off the top of my head because I haven't looked at it. So I can't, I don't want to tell you something that's incorrectly. I'll take a look at some of that stuff, though, because if we stay with Motu, I am considering a couple other possible changes to take use, to benefit from the whole Ethernet thing, which is what our headphone system is here. It's all Ethernet. It's so nice being able to run a cable. You got power. You got lines. It rocks. There was one, Man Network said, yeah, Man Network, I'm assuming you're asking him if his lights and stuff are separate. I know mine are. And you know what? Having a light plugged in doesn't mean you will have a problem. But it is a one of those things that can absolutely cause one. You know, sometimes we're doing these streams, we just need an outlet, and we don't have any more power, and we don't want to run to the back and get it, and we just plug it in. If I don't hear any issues, I don't worry about it, you know. But I would definitely if you can, try to separate that. For me in the control room, I have 2 boxes right behind the console, and I have 2 more over here that are only for audio gear and the video computers. That's it. Then the outlets that are, well, behind the camera where you guys are right now, which is behind the couch in the back wall, that's where my other outlets are for lights and whatnot, and everything that gets plugged in that doesn't have to do with this audio runs back to there, including the lights that I have back around here, behind the console. They have their own Furman, one of the cheap ones, that it all runs to that Furman, and then that comes back and gets plugged in back over there. It's not even plugged in where all the gear is. But I have one Furman that has all the lights on it, so I can one switch and everything kicks on, just to make my life a little bit easier. The Cat 7 thing is interesting. I'm going to have to look into that.
And then Zona Recording says, I was thinking about going Dante with radar converters, running an IZ radar now. So I don't know that brand.
Radar, it's been a long time. That's what I don't know if you were in the control room yesterday when they were talking about, we had a big Roswell mic demo day here, and I think might have been Warren Hewitt talking about one of the systems they were trying to get, or his assistant, and it was radar, and they were having some issues with it for some reason, and I think it was with Dante. I think there was some handshake issue, and I can't remember what his assistant said because I got pulled away from the conversation. But they were having some. I don't know enough about radar. It's been a long time since I've worked with that. I'm not even sure who I would be able to ask. I'll have to think about that, see if I know anyone else running that. But I know there was something there that might have been an issue. But I do know some people that use the radar. I don't know about the Dante side that absolutely love it. But personally, I haven't had too much experience with that. Oh, if we do the upgrade of the audio, okay, that isn't one. That's not an if. That's just a win at this point. It hopefully it's going to be this year, maybe in the summer or something. Haven't 100% locked in on the direction. I would say it's an 85%, 80%, something like that. It's highly likely going to stay with the new Motus, just because they work. They sound good. The new ones sound good. They have some good connectivity that I like, that I'd love to be able to take advantage of. They're also the big one. It's the price point. You know, for the amount of inputs that are needed here, they fit a price point that logically it makes business sense for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would love to just go drive down to Santa Monica and just go pick up a whole bunch of Apogee stuff, but I'd have to sell my car and then 3 other cars.
Yeah, Moto is AVN, yeah. Mm-hmm.
AVN, that's what it is, yeah. But
AVB, yeah.
AVB. But the Kaiser Sose absolutely 100% will do video of that. We'll definitely do that.
Yeah. I mean, even Presonus is a candidate, because you get 64 with just 2 units.
Yeah, and after seeing the video that David did over on the Mixing Music, I think that was Mixing Music Analog, or did they do that on the home recording? I think it was the Mixing Music Analog. That against the UAs, it's kind of blew my mind a little bit. And having talked to him about those, David Vignola, a few times about those units, that they sound great. They're working for him, and he's working all the freaking time. So yes, that is one of them that is in the running. And the Antelope is another one I'm still looking at. Yeah, so Man Network says he uses the Antelope audio. How many channels of that are you running? How many units do you have? Give me some deets, man. Detail. Yeah. I'm trying to sound cool, and it just doesn't come out right. I need the deets. They stopped saying that in 2018. Yes, the Zona, I think he said that the radar is rock solid, yeah.
Yeah, and Beagle Studio says, I've had problems with Presonus with face issues going out of the box and back in.
What Presonus are you using, out of curiosity? USB 32 and Max 64 with 1 Orion. Oh, 1 USB 32. 1 Max. So how many total, Man Network, how many total units do you have? Electric Outworks, I'm referencing the 4848 if you're asking me that question.
Yeah. The Quantum is 32 in and out. Yeah.
Okay, so Zona recording, yeah, you're at 56. I'm 64, so I'm right up with you. And that is why my initial top of my list right now, that's in my price range of gear that I like, is the Motu 16As. We've had Motu for so long here. They've been so great, and I hear the same thing about some of the new gear, and they've upgraded some things, so it's definitely on the top of my list. Plus, they have the networking ability, and there's a few other things that I might like to take advantage of. However, after talking with David Vignola and seeing the test that he and Dave did, Dave squared, did on the Mixing Music Analog, those Presonus, the Quantum 4848, instantly jumped up. I'd been curious about those. Luckily, David was on one of the live streams when we were talking about it and got to talk to him more about that. And they have now convinced me that those are rock solid units and they sound great and they've been working fine. So that is on the list. The Orion has always been something I've looked at. Again, I like the idea of, with both of the Presonus and the Orion, of two rack spaces, 64 analog I/O. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be because I haven't looked at this in a while, that the Orion gives you some other connectivity, your other digital, that you don't get with the Presonus. But also, I think the Presonus, Allie's always asking me, so I'm just clarifying, I don't know, that I'm not sure that, I think Presonus is working on something new, or the updated version of that, but I don't have any details on that. The Motu also gives you some of the other connectivity, which I like. Okay, so 3 Orions. Use one on USB with 32 channels and 2 other Orions that I stack via Thunderbolt with 128. Holy crap. And no problems? Working great?
Yeah, 64 channels of Rosetta 800s. Well, that is wild. That's great.
Holy crap. I love my Rosetta 200. Absolutely in love with it. And I remember one point last year looking at the 800s, and he just rolled us. I'm like, man, screw the upgrades. We'll just go this and we'll get some 800s. He's just like, man. But they sound so good, so I totally get why you would still be using those. They're rock solid, sound good. Yeah, the current 4848 I know has been discontinued.
Yeah, Regal asked a good question. Why do you guys print your 2 bus to another computer? It's like, well, it's just because of latency and connectivity and not having to deal with digital.
Well, workflow too. When I used to run it kind of like what Yeti was doing. I had everything going back into one session. So I was running the Motus as an aggregate device with the Apogee. So my final print went back through the Apogee. I got tired of the latency. I got tired of sometimes having it be stable. Some days it would boot up totally fine. 2 devices, everybody working together. And some days I'd waste so much time just trying to make sure it was stable as I was working. Got tired of that. So when I went to the print machine, it allowed me to basically use the console and the Motus and everything here, not only mixing, but I could retrack, I could print in, I could do everything with only the latency from my Motus. And I'm always running my buffer at 64, sometimes at 32. My latency is 4 milliseconds, 4.5, something like that.
It's sub 5.
Yeah. Which is not an issue. If I do print back in, I will line it back up if it's important. If it's a reverb or a delay that I printed back in, I almost never lined that back up. Because what I was hearing, I liked. So I just went, 4 seconds is not going to ruin my reverb, unless I absolutely had to have it start at the right time. But if it was, say I was, the guitar pedals and stuff, and it was on drums or on bass, yeah. I actually do the same thing as Yeti. I would have a click at the very, very beginning. I'd do that, and I would pull that. I would print my track back in and pull it over. But once the mix went to the print machine, all I have to do to go, oh, I need to print something in, or you know what, we need to add a guitar on this. We're missing something. I just simply on the console hit the button for my 2-track return. I'm no longer listening to stuff through the Apogee. We are only listening to the session right from the Motu coming through the stereo out. Okay, let's record what we need to do. I don't have to reset anything. When it was all printing back into the same session to do that, I would have to not use the aggregate device anymore. I would have to turn that off, reselect the Motus, which then everything was a wreck. It was some days it was just almost impossible to work. So you would just have to get your thing in there, turn it all back on, and then kind of line things up and make sure it worked. I no longer have to do that. It's one button, turn off the 2-track. We're listening to the stereo. Great, let's record that guitar part. Great, let's add that shaker part. Oh, let's add that tambourine. It's just it's a normal recording session then. There is no latency or lining up. And then I'm like, okay, we got it. 2-track back on. Now I'm listening to my print channel again. That alone was a huge, huge benefit day one. It improved all my workflow day one.
Yeah, and you don't have the issue of 2 computers trying to constantly talk, and not 2 computers, 2 interfaces constantly trying to talk with the interfaces.
Yeah, especially when one is PCI and one is FireWire 800.
Oh yeah,
that was a huge. If they were both PCI, I don't know, maybe it would have been different, or both FireWire 800, maybe it would have been different, or maybe not. I don't know, but this was significantly different, and I got tired of it. It's easier to get the 2 computers synced so they're running at the same time than it was to consistently get the 2 interfaces to play nice inside one session.
Oh, yeah, a nightmare.
And this also means now my print laptop, it will never get upgraded past the OS that allows it to use the version of Logic that it has now with the FireWire 800. So even when we upgrade, that Rosetta 200 is staying. That's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It works. I love the sound of it too much to get rid of it.
Is there a significant difference between rack and 500 size gear?
There can be, especially with pre's and power. You know, like some rack gear, you're not limited to the power supply, and it's, you know, some of the Neve gear, especially. I know they're not the only ones. It's just the one that came to my mind. Run higher voltages. That's how they get the headroom. Like if you go to a 5088 console, that thing is it's an oven. It's running, I want to say 36 volts.
Yeah, above 30. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And then I don't know if necessarily all the outboard runs that, but I know in the rack units you aren't limited by the power supply that you're using, and it can. They figure out ways. You know, some companies have figured out ways to get around that a little bit by pulling power from, like, you know, the kind of the way you would run phantom power. I don't know the details of that. I'm going to ask somebody, and I'll explain it, you know, not making an ass out of myself. But I know they have been ways to get a little extra power to the units, you know, by stepping it up with a transformer or doing something of, you know, some sort of technical thing. But in a rack, if you get multiple power-hungry devices, I have not had this problem yet. But I do have multiple friends that have switched racks because they had some power-hungry 500 units that, when they were all on and working, caused units after them to not get enough power. So it would cause issues, noise, intermittent working. Sometimes units just not coming on. They would change the order, be fine, or if they'd take the piece that wasn't working and put it in a different rack. So there was only a couple of the power-hungry ones. So I think the biggest thing maybe is power, which also in a pre definitely can affect your headroom. It shouldn't be a freaking issue. If you can't do what you're doing with the headroom you have, you got bigger issues. But that would be one of them. Beyond that, there probably is that I don't know about. If there's someone out here on the chat right now that technically can chime in there, that'd be great. I can tell you just as a user, and I've thrown every sound I can through the 500 racks over there and the 19-inch racks here, I haven't noticed any difference that makes a problem. And I haven't had the power issue, but I do know that's a real issue. You know, I haven't had the power issue with the Tridents or the Fredenstein Bento over here. They've been great. So that's, from an end user, man, I haven't noticed issues. And I'd say maybe in the 19-inch rack space stuff, sometimes you can get more features in there because you have the space to work with. A few, like the old Tone Luxes, I know they're getting ready to relaunch some new ones that with reworked interfaces, but there's so many options it gets a little tight to work with. You know, whereas in a rack, you obviously have more space. Maybe some tube gear you could have some possible issues with the 500 rack because everything kind of gets shoved in there. But my IGS is that I think there's 3 tubes in that thing. And while it gets warm, it hasn't caused any issues, and it hasn't no issues of gear around it. But sonically, if there's a difference, my ears aren't good enough to tell.
Yeah, I'd say power is a problem with some tube 500 units, but most 500 units you'll never notice.
Right, and that actually makes sense to me, you know, because you have an active tube in there, which is, you know, can cause some issues with surrounding gear, but also it's pulling power. And I want to say some of even the Chandler stuff is pulling more power, and maybe the Neve. I probably shouldn't have said that without going to double check that. I haven't looked at some of that gear in a while. That used to be something I paid attention to when I was buying the 500 stuff. Oh, I'm going to put it in this rack, and I've got these 3 things in there. Is this going to be a problem? And now I'm walking the wild side a little bit more. It's just like, oh, I want that piece of gear. I'm going to go get it and shove it in the rack. Haven't had an issue yet, though. But I only have 1 tube piece of gear, the IGS tube core. That's the only 2 piece of gear that I'm running. And I want to say that nothing else that I personally have is pulling that much power or causing that much of an issue, or that could cause that much of an issue. I don't think so.
Yeah,
I'll buy some more tube gear and I'll report back.
Yeah, sometimes it's just, I think the the difference of this is just overblown.
Okay, and you know what? I think you're probably absolutely right. Gearspace needs things to talk about. There's plenty of YouTube videos. We're talking about it right now. You need things to talk about. They need to sell you, companies need to sell you things. And even sometimes, maybe Man Network, for instance, just said that he can't tell any difference between his Neve 500 preamps and his racks, right? But the schematics and some of the, if you're really digging deep into the tech side, you might find that, this one's at this voltage and this one's at this voltage because the 19 you can do this. But when you go to use it, can any of us really tell? I mean, I'm sure there's somebody who can.
Yeah, most likely.
I'm pretty sure that person isn't me. I'm probably going to pull it up and go,
Yeah.
sounds like a Neve. Sounds
But
great.
yeah,
Let's go to work.
But in context, in a mix,
Yeah.
it's like, can you tell? No.
So don't get too hung up on some of that stuff. Just get it and go. Go make
Yeah.
some music. And if there is a problem, then you figure it out. So if you're buying it new, you can always send it back. Ferrofish. I've never heard of that. Ferrofish has this is Electric Owl Works. Ferrofish has some Swiss Army knife solutions with ADAT, Dante Matty, Analog I/O, and ADDA converters. All right, I'm going to have to look at that. Ferrofish. I spelled it wrong. Man, I spelled fish wrong. Probably shouldn't have admitted that on a live stream. Oh, this German company. This stuff's going to be good. Interesting. All right, I'm going to look at that a little bit later. Great, more homework.
Yeah.
So, I saw Zona. I want to. Was it you? Somebody asked earlier. We were talking about the 56 channels and what they said. They had 56 channels. Wanted some thoughts. I can't remember.
Oh,
who
it's
that
like
was.
he wants a 56 IO. Any thoughts?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, your price point. The first thing is you got to decide how much money you want to spend on any of this. What's your budget? Because that's going to narrow the field down right away.
Yeah.
If you have an unlimited budget, then it's really actually a more tougher decision, I think. But if you have X amount of dollars to spend, that right there, you can knock off certain, options right away. And then it comes down to the best option in your price range. But I'm going to tell you this right now, and I really firmly believe this. Don't think you can't make great sounding recordings with the cheaper option I/O. Whether that cheaper option be a Motu versus a Burl or the Personas versus the Antelope or something like that. Some of them come with extra features, bells and whistles that may make them worth the extra dough, especially if they fit your workflow. But if you just need to get your music in and monitor it back out, don't think for a second you can't pull out a Personas and make some great sounding stuff. Don't think for a second you couldn't pull out a Focusrite, an 18i or whatever, and make some great sounding music. Or we have some Motu 8 pre's, those were made in 1935? They've been around forever. And you know what? I use those anytime I'm recording drums and the videos by myself in the live room and you see a laptop next to me, it's hooked up to an 8 pre. And those things work great. So don't think you can't make or don't lose sleep over not being able to buy, the best thing or the most expensive thing. Get your budget, figure out what you can spend that makes sense for your application, for your business, and then go buy something inside that price range and then go to work. You can always upgrade later if you really feel you need to. But don't think you have to go buy the absolute best, highest money thing, because most of the time, I'm going to speak for myself. If I had to go spend $20,000 on the I/O to get what I had here, I can't justify that for my business. I just can't. It doesn't make sense to me. It put me under, really. I mean, trying to make that back. Oh my Lord, especially while there's options that are cheaper than that. So define your budget and then see what's available. That's my long-winded rant of saying that simple one sentence.
Oh, that's a different question. Have you used green glue when building out your walls?
I have not personally. I know people that have, but I have not. I've either done a soundboard sandwich of an extra layer drywall, Actually, I'd almost do it. Again, it comes down to money, right? If you've got the money, I know some of the data shows that green glue works. I have talked to a couple acousticians and studio builders that say they've done it before and it actually helps. But I'd almost be willing to bet a third. Willing to bet, that's a terrible thing to do when you're building a studio in acoustics. Don't bet. Do a little research. But I think from some of the things I have read, from a cost benefit of just add another layer of drywall, do third layer of drywall instead, and have the mass in there. And then beyond that, you kind of get diminishing returns if things aren't isolated correctly and that sort of thing. I know that had nothing to do with the green glue question, but personally, no, I have not used it.
Yeah, because Zona recording he has. So, well.
Did you see a benefit? I mean, did it help?
David says, I think most people make way too much over converters. Most 1,000 plus interfaces work more than fine for 95% of applications, of course.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, in Man Network, he said, he wouldn't have the Orion if he didn't have the relationship. But also on the Orion side of things, I know it's not just a straight converter. They have some plugins and some other bells and whistles. I want to say it's UAD-ish in its idea. I could be wrong there, but I know there's other bells and whistles besides just the I/O. And that fits your workflow. You got to think about that in your workflow too. I don't use that many plugins all the time, and I already kind of have most of the ones that I like to use. So I'm not looking, for me, it wouldn't make any sense to go do the UAD thing and pay the extra price when I don't need the other part of what they offer. I want analog in and out, and maybe some more routing options for the studio.
TV Player asks, what's a decent 8-channel mobile and portable recording gig? Well, really depends on what operating system you're on, because you can get some old stuff that works perfect if you don't care about what operating system you're on, like the 8 Pre, which is Firewire, but it doesn't go, with the newer ones, forget it.
But are you you don't specify, TV Player, not specifying if you're using a laptop. You just said recording rig. So is that recording rig with your laptop, or are you just looking for something 8 channels regardless of that?
Exactly.
Because there are some, hard disk type recorders, like Tascam makes some that you could get and take with you.
Oh, no PC.
Yeah, so it's just that solution. Yeah. If Vignola's still around, I'd be curious. I know you've used the Persona Studio Live stuff. Is there built-in recording capabilities with those? Are they take an SD card or anything? I think there is a Allen and Heath version that does. And the Allen and Heath we've used before, I can't say enough good things about it. Stuff that's built well sounds good. I know Tascam makes some. I'm trying to think. There's another one I've heard of. These are mixer units, right? At least the ones that I'm thinking of. But the Tascam ones I've seen recently, you just plug an SD card into and you're recording straight to that SD card. That could be a nice all-in-one system. You plop it out. You have some faders. You may have a little EQ if you need it, a little built-in compression if it's there, and you could make some really bitchin' recordings on the go.
Yeah, Zoom recording units, I don't know. Do they do 8 channels?
I know you can do 4. They might have one. There are a few. I don't look into enough of that side of things.
Oh,
look.
MAN says Zoom has Live Track, which is nearly identical to 12 and 24. Well, there you go.
I'm pulling up the Zoom website right now. Yeah. Everybody's using cookies, but I never get any cookies. I go to the website, it says we're using cookies, and no cookies show up, man. What the hell? Let's see. Products.
Yeah.
Multi-track. Oh, that's mic track. Video, podcast, iOS, audio interfaces. Zoom, they have really expanded their lineup. Holy crap. There is a lot of options here. But maybe check those out too. I've used the Zoom's stuff in the past, especially when I had to go out and do remote video, and I'd have one with the stereo mic on it on top of my camera rig, and then I'd have 2 wireless lavs plugged in it for whoever I was working with, plugged into the XLRs on it, and they were fantastic. I had no problems with that rig whatsoever. It worked really, really well. If you want more of a traditional thing, look at one of the mixers, the Tascams, possibly the Personas. I don't know if it has onboard recording. And I know I'm forgetting about another company of someone I just helped do some live streaming with last year and used one, and I can't remember the model. I'll think of it. That you can record direct on. And then you have more of a traditional kind of setup.
Yeah, I'd say LiveTrack is a mixer, recorder, and interface. And Tascam have 12, 16, and 24 models.
Oh, yeah, there's the LiveTrack. Yep.
You know, and Model 24 mixer records to SD or your DAW.
Wow, the LiveTrack, the 8-channel mixer LiveTrack, $500, $450 at Sweetwater.
There you go.
That's actually not a bad price for any of that. And I know for me, if I was out in doing mobile recordings and stuff, I actually had the 3 8 pre's in a rack in a laptop and did that for a while, and it was nice just having something simple and straightforward. And those things worked really well. But if you're not using a laptop of any sort, Mac or PC, the LiveTrack, look at the Tascams, one of those mixer styles that you can just plug a card into and go. You can put... Oh, so the Personas also, you can do that too now. There's another option. The Personas ones are actually cool. I've used those before, not with an SD card or anything in it, but they're great.
Danny T says, I picked up the shotgun shell mic that you spoke about in the past. I used it on the drums as a dick mic.
Yep.
It sounds cool. You should do a video on that.
I've used that in that position. Most of the time, I like my 4047 right there, but I could see that one. Did you get the red one or the blue? So were you Omni or cardioid? It's a perfect mic for that position, though. 2 audio fuse. Man Network says he's used 2 audio fuse 8 pre's linked for live recording. Are those interfaces for computer, though? Because I think the question was no TV player said there was no
PC. Yeah.
no PC. There's so many options now. It's interesting how we went from coming out in the early 2000s, mid 2000s out into there were lots of digital recorders. There were Alesis ones and everything that were options because the laptop hadn't quite become the way a lot of people were working. And then as the interfaces got better and the laptops were fast enough, they get powerful enough, you saw those kind of, take a back seat. And they turned into more field recorders, and your Zooms and your companies like that started doing things. And now you're seeing some of these mixer style ones kind of come back because I think people want go out and you set it in front of you. It makes sense. You go like this and you just hit record and you're going. You don't have to mess with the computer, that sort of thing. And I totally get that too.
Yeah, sure.
Honestly, if I was doing field recording, I didn't have to open a laptop. I could just plop, the mixer down, run my mics and whatever, some headphones, card, record, enable.
Yeah.
Boom, let's go. I wouldn't hate doing mobile recording so much.
Yeah. Yeah, Danny says he got the red ones. The shotgun.
Yeah, those. Put it in front of a kick drum. It is a killer second kick bite. It's Omni, so it's going to get everything too, but oh my lord, the mid-range in that thing is so freaking cool. Yeah, all those. I have a blue one also that I haven't got to use yet because one of the connectors came off and I need to fix it. But I love the red ones. Those things are a blast. What else we got? This was interesting where this conversation went today. Somebody's recording. I love it, man. First one out of the gates of the year. We've gone somewhere we haven't gone before. I saw another one about... I just woke Delilah up. She just looks at me calm, settle down, man. I'm trying to sleep.
But
Yeah, Kaiser Sose says there's a reason why some converters are so expensive, but the price of getting an expensive converter defeats its purpose. Yeah, there are some reasons. And if I was only doing mastering and only needed a couple, I might look at a different route of doing things, for sure. But I do think overall, no one's going to know if you had $40,000 worth of converters or $4,000 worth of converters. If you know what you're doing. I mean, but if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to ruin anything on $40,000 worth of converters too, so it won't make any difference.
Yeah, man says also check out Tascam Porta Studio. Man, nothing beats the Tascam cassette recorders, man.
I'd say we all just go back to 4-track. Screw it.
You know? I mean, if you're lucky, you can get an 8-track, with a reel. But, man, cassettes is the way to go. Only up to 12K. Man, try to deal with that,
That's why there's all the hiss. That's the missing high end.
Yeah. Forget all that, all those new EQs with like 40K of air. It's like, that's
man. He knows. He's making a joke. Yeah, I mean, Tascam has some cool stuff out right now.
They all do. I mean, jeez. I'm trying to sell my Tascam cassette, because.
Are you?
Well, yeah. What am I gonna do with it? The 280.
Oh, the big one. Yeah.
No, the small one. No. That one has way too much of a sentimental value. No. And there's some music on it that I still have to transfer.
Oh yeah, there's that. Yeah.
But the other one that we tried to fix is like, maybe have somebody else take a crack at it.
Man Networks wants to know how much.
I mean the shipping is probably more expensive than the actual unit, so. But I mean, I think I paid these guys, right? I think I paid like $200 to kind of fix, whatever they had to fix, and it's. I would say it didn't beat the other one.
Yeah, it wasn't a significant upgrade. That's why we ended up not using it for one of the.
But yeah, I mean, Jesus, I mean, if you pay for the shipping, I can just just send it to you, So it's a 280. It's a Tascam 280 cassette 4-track.
Zona Recordings. What 2-track reel-to-reel were you using? I finally got the 8-track. The Fostex R8 is now actually working, and I was listening to just some demo stuff we recorded right before it went back into the shop, well before the holidays. I was like, oh my God, there's some vibe to it. And it's 15 IPS, so it's not quite as noisy. It's dealable. I want to know what okay, hold on. Let me copy and paste. I'm going to go see what that one is right now. Ooh. Oh, is that Amara Machines? Yeah, 15 IPS rocks. So is that Amara Machines? The Amara Machines, oh man, what they're doing is, okay, I'm jealous. That's the way to go. One day. Those are cool. I have a non-gear related question I want to ask because I'm in my head. We're seeing, we're talking about all these studios. Everybody's doing some work. Who uses Discord? I'm trying to find another platform to use as a way to connect outside of the chat here or comments. Something that is easier. Not enough people are on Facebook to get everybody there. Some just don't like it, which is fine. I don't really care. The same thing with Rumble and others. So I'm looking for some middle of the ground one that no one has any political issues with, that we can just freaking talk about music. And I've been looking at Discord and thinking about doing that. So, is that an option for everybody? Is there a way to connect? Because I would love to see some of the studios and some of the things that everyone's doing, and be able to share some, more things that are going on around here directly. So, Discord, yes or no? Man Networks uses Discord, and he'll seriously buy the Tascam. If you're into that, I've got a Yamaha U1. I'd really like to, it's going to cost a little more than shipping, though. They use use Discord for your college recording classes. Okay, cool. And I'm going to look into that. 2 people saying yes is enough for me. I've officially conducted my survey. Okay, yeah, the 3 people Discord, it's unanimous. The 3 have spoken. Good. I'm working on it. I'm actually working on a few things I'm trying to launch in the next month or so here. So I'm trying to get all that stuff together in between some of the work that's going on. Because I do want another way to get everyone able to like talk and share things beyond just the streams. Because we're going to add some like course type stuff that's going to go on the subscription. But it's under works at the moment. Want to make sure everything's going right. There was a 25 corner freaking great sound they release. Which Yeti? Which hard disk recorder? Man, I have problems scrolling on my laptop. Man, this has been.
I know this is great. There's just we're doing parallel discussions.
It's great. I know. I love it. You know, that's what this whole thing is about, man. That's what it's all about, right, Delilah? You can see the look I'm getting right now.
Oh man, it's just like,
why are you bothering me? You're not talking
Yeah.
about food. Stop talking to me. All right. Well, what time is it?
it's 4.
Holy crap! It's 4:29. Really?
Yeah, 4:30.
Man.
It's great.
Well, this has been awesome. It's good to see everybody and a few new people that I don't know if you've watched them before, but I don't recognize. Welcome. Thanks for joining in on the chat, offering up, advice, gear, all the sort of thing. And that's what getting everybody sharing here is what it's all about. Almost bought an Ampex, very expensive. There's a place near me that reconditions them. Yeah, an Ampex. I do want to get a good 2-track at some point because I'd like to have that as a print option for mixes also as a secondary and even do some straight to tape recording. That's something I'm going to working on with the R8 is setting up. I'm going to set up the mix or the bus channels on the Trident as the send and return just for that Fostex and try to do some straight off the floor everything recording. So once it's on there, you got 8 channels to mix, and you're pretty much done right after the recording session.
Oh, here Beagle Studio says you always poked fun at your quad reverb, which it's more fun.
I poke fun at them because I love them.
Yeah, and then he says there's a cheap one locally here. What do you use it for?
I use it for a lot of things. It's on almost every single mix I do. Sometimes it's for guitar effects. The majority of the times it's some vocal effects of something. It has been used for drums as well. And I have both of mine cascaded together so I can. And I took that idea from Heinbach. He's got a great channel on using all old gear and vintage and tape and some really crazy sounds, man. And he had one running into the other because they also overdrive well so you can get them crunchy. And it doesn't break up like digital sound does. It's just cool. But a lot of the times my vocal delays, my vocal reverbs are the quad reverb. Unless I'm doing something where I need it like really clean, or maybe it's, the piano stuff, or like Friday for the live stream with Craig Stickland and Roswell, I used my Yamaha Pro R3 because I wanted something that just was going to be nice and pristine behind it. But in most everything else, I like the kind of dirt and the grit and the little more lo-fi-ish sound of the quad reverbs. Matter of fact, I might get one more so I can leave a pair cascaded and have a second one to use for some other things. And I think what I'm going to do with some of my outboard over here is start building chains with things. So I might have more cascaded units that are just hardwired that way. So delay and a reverb together, that sort of thing. So I just have options right in there without having to do extra patching. I've been messing around with a few ideas, but I haven't landed on what I want yet.
Kaiser Sosa's asking, when's the next live with Uncle Dave?
Soon. I got to talk to Dave about that. It's just some scheduling here at the studio. But we will be doing that one soon. Although he might take offense at being called Uncle. I don't know. But yeah, we're gonna do that soon because I know he's got some new gear that he wants to talk about.
Oh yeah,
Which is gonna make me have to go buy new gear. And here we go.
Oh, thank you. MN says you two and Dave do great streams.
Okay, I gotta go.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, Jesus, we just
Talk a lot.
we just talk and try to answer whatever we know of and about.
Ernesto and I always joke that between Dave and I, we could talk for a week without a break.
Yeah.
And no one would be able to get 2 words in. And I think Dave would probably agree with that too. But that's coming up. We're doing that soon for sure. Right now it's all scheduling.
Oh man.
All right. Well, I'm getting hungry. It's that time of day.
But yeah, this was great. Thanks, guys. I mean, man, lot of cool stuff today. A lot of cool stuff, and maybe I can get to sell my task.
I need to put a low cut on you when you laugh.
It's been sitting in the closet, for like 4 months now. It's like I don't want that thing to get old. Have somebody use it.
Yeah, Man Network. Yeah, talk about the realistic parts of owning studios. That's the only parts I know. It's got to be logical. All right, you guys. Happy 2023. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
Hey,
it was awesome. So, we'll see you in.
I got food on my mind right now,
Yeah.
so.
See you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we'll be back. We'll get the list up. I'm gonna talk to David, Uncle Dave. See, now I'm gonna call him Uncle Dave from now. He's Uncle Dave. If he's listening right now, he's probably face planting. But I'm gonna talk to Uncle Dave. We'll get that going. Also got a couple other guests that right now that are on tour. I'm just trying to work out schedules with that I think are gonna be freaking awesome. That you're gonna love. So thanks for joining us.
You guys rock.
We'll see y'all soon. Out.